Hi everyone, in this video I'm going to talk about what is happening currently on earth in this century that many people do not understand is happening on earth, and it's something that people have to awaken towards, because that's the only way we can balance certain things in earthly life. So, for centuries or thousands of years, we have had a typical kind of gender role existing on earth, where obviously men were doing all the outside home related work, looking after social systems, legal systems, operational systems, and business functions, or farming activities, heavy bodybuilding related activities. While what were women focusing on? Women were focusing on home care, child care taking, nurturing the child, taking care of the food related, cooking related needs, healthcare related needs, elderly care, social care, building a social circle, or keeping the family life together. This was the normal gender norms, where both genders had different roles and they were segregated into different roles, to understand the two different kinds of roles that are needed, one to sustain a family and social life, and the other to sustain in general the overall societal life and functional and financial aspects of living. But while these two separate gender roles were going on, we had wars in the last 100 years. We had deaths also due to pandemics in different centuries. We had also increasing rise in global population. So all these were the reasons. The direct reasons and some indirect hidden reasons, where now, because wars happened, deaths happened, some key social members who were doing their normal general social functions started dying on earth. But when people started dying, say if there was a war and a father died, when the father is dying, the family life is now a mess of a father figure who can do the father roles. And when the father roles are absent, now the women have to take over. If it is not like that, if it is that the father is still present and existing in a person's life, but if the father is absentee father, not involved in some house caretaking also that the father has to do, is not allowing the wife to do some outside housework that the mother has to do, or the pockets of society where steep stark patriarchal norms are there, like where Taliban is there, where women are not allowed some freedoms, those kind of places where, and it's not just about Taliban, but it is also about similar kind of mindset, holding pockets of the world where women are not given some freedom to just do some outside home work, and the men are not waking up to the inside home work they have to do. So when things like that are happening, women usually end up taking a lot of roles, where if the father figure is dead or absent or completely missing from the child's life, women have to take up both the father and mother's role, so the outside home role as well as the inside home role. Or if the father is not involved in home life or not allowing women to have a balanced life, then again an imbalance will occur, and the child will end up realizing where things are imbalanced and might want to balance out two gender roles eventually after they grow up, and want to do both parts of the roles of a father and a mother in a more balanced manner than they would if they had a normal traditional family. And if there were deaths happening because of pandemics or other reasons, or when men are not, the reason why men need to pay attention in their home life is because they have to realize sometimes that when their wives are sick, when their wives are needing caretaking, men have to learn how to take over the family life things when the wife is sick, when the wife is not doing well. But what happens most times, men don't learn it, and then if their wife dies, they end up marrying a second time, but they still don't get deeply involved in the family life related aspects that they were meant to wake up to, leading to the child sometimes getting neglected by the second spouse. And again, when these things start happening, then those men who didn't get the right love, whose mothers got lost, whose mothers died, now they have to then wake up to some feminine aspects of caretaking, emotional needs that their father didn't wake up to. But that's the consequence of a child being raised in a family where the mother was a absentee mother because she died, because there was a different mother who didn't connect emotionally to the child, because the father was emotionally negligent, didn't connect and get involved with the children. So these kind of things started happening in the last few hundreds of years, and because of which there's a whole segment of population who are not raised in traditional families for whatever reason. These are just some of the reasons I mentioned because these are easier things for people to understand. But every single family might have, or every single child been raised in a certain kind of family setup, will have their own individual specific life experience specific reasons why they are growing up to be a particular kind of personality type. And that personality type is actually needed on earth, because when there is too much distinction and differentiation between gender roles, and there is not enough people in the middle to merge the two gender roles in a balanced way, what starts happening is the male gender and the female gender starts fracturing. And that's why also in the modern world, when marriages break apart, if both the man and the woman are too much alien to each other and there is no one to connect them in the middle, their marriage will break up. If they have a child who can connect them in the middle, sometimes because of the child the marriage continues. If they don't even have that common child that can connect the marriage, because maybe the man is the first husband and the woman is the second wife. If the woman is the second wife and is not connected biologically to the child, maybe she's not merging as much as she should with the man, that could also end up fracturing the relationship. So whatever the reason, if there's no man and no child involved in the picture, if it is the in-laws or siblings involved, again siblings and involves and other family members involved in a relationship, especially in conservative cultures, they can influence the relationship a lot. Because when man is existing and is in a particular frame of mind, and woman is existing in a particular frame of mind specific to her gender specific roles, and man is doing that specific to his gender specific roles, but they are not finding and merging the middle ground. And at that time, if there is a potential for them to merge the middle grounds, their family and other social circles are meant to help them bind closer to each other. But again, if there's no potential at all, or the potential that exists for them to merge and find the middle grounds is very superficial or barely there, or it was there earlier, but when people evolved in a relationship after a few years of marriage, whatever was connecting them initially is not connecting them anymore, then what will start happening? If your life paths are supposed to diverge, then also those couples can separate. If your life paths were not were only meant to be a life lesson with each other for a brief few years, then also they might separate. If you were completely living in illusion about your relationship with your spouse, then also it will separate. If the joining members who could bind you together closer to each other, they themselves have either ulterior motives or soul contracts to either help you merge or help you unmerge lives with your spouses, they will end up doing that as well. So this also is a factor that merges or unmerges relationships. But why is this happening? This is happening for overall greatest good of every human on earth, because if you are consistently with partners who are misaligned with you, with your life purpose, soul purpose, life goals, evolution of how what you were meant to learn when you were there supposed to be with a partner long term, if those evolutionary paths are getting blocked, if your growth is getting blocked, if you're not able to mature up and evolve in a relationship in a balanced manner with a spouse, if there is too much imbalance and only one partner is trying to make things work but the other partner is not equitably making things work, if your paths, only future paths of how or what you are meant to be in life is completely divergent, or so if not completely divergent, has started diverging in such a way that it is necessary for you to break apart from them. That's why in the modern world there is a lot of breakups. Other reason there are also a lot of breakups is because there's overpopulation on earth. So very few people are actually lucky or have the life purpose on earth to have multiple kids. Most people are only meant to in general have maybe max one kid or two kids currently at this phase of evolution on earthly life, because the population density on earth right now is such that it's not sustainable if people continue having multiple kids. While some pockets of society are ending up having multiple kids for whatever reason, sometimes there is evolutionarily what is happening in those families is also something toxic that those families have to realize on their own why it is toxic or how it went toxic. And while I understand that information, I'll not present it in this video, but let's talk about in general those people who have been living some same miserable life for a while now, and they are maybe in their 30s and 40s and wondering why relationship after relationship they face so much heartbreak, or those who had got married in their 20s and 30s and then in their 30s and 40s they are realizing that this marriage is, after like maybe 10 years 12 years of marriage, they're realizing this marriage is not working out for them. There is again some ulterior reasons, long or higher purpose related reasons why that marriage may or may not work out for them after few decades or few years of being married. And again, individual specific case by case analysis a person has to do, self reflection a person has to do, as well as a joint reflection or understanding with their spouse they have to create in order to understand if they can create a joint resolution by just simply understanding the other soul at a soul level, then if even if they break up, they will break up very easily and mutually and in a graceful manner. On the other hand, if one of them doesn't develop the maturity, or if both of them don't develop the maturity as to why their relationship was fracturing or not evolving together, then when they break up, it will be a nasty divorce or nasty separation or difficulty laced separation. But again, whichever path ends up happening for us, the good best case scenario is when you consciously uncouple, like how Gwyneth Paltrow did with her husband. Again, it's not that she and her husband didn't have heartbreaks, they didn't have disappointments, they didn't have pain when their marriage was separating, but while they did have the grief, they did have the pain, they were consciously both a little bit better aware than other souls, because of which people didn't get to experience the bitterness of their divorce, and hopefully their children, that's why, didn't end up feeling that fractured. But that is like possibly the best case scenario that unfolds for people when they get consciously divorced. Whereas for most souls, there's this middle journey where one or the other holds a lot of grief and angst, one or the other, and holding grief and angst, everyone will be holding grief and angst when they are separating from their spouses or long-term partners or anyone they were in love with. That grief and suffering is part of the life experience they came on earth to experience, as a consequence of which they will learn certain life lessons that will be for their future benefit. But that life lesson doesn't we don't get to understand that life lesson until a few years after that breakup and painful phase has passed away. So after you have gone through that painful phase of 5 6 years, 10 years after, or whatever years you were grieving about a particular relationship, eventually the higher purpose of having had that relationship, if you are evolving in life, will emerge for you. Of course, if you don't evolve in life, that life lesson might take you longer. It may take you even until you're before you die, like 30 40 years for you to learn that lesson. But that's again the individual life path journey, how much you matured, how much you tried to learn, how much you didn't learn in that lifetime when you had some heartbreak or grief. But if you do want to learn, if you do want to become a balanced individual, if you do want to get healed from any traumas you felt from your past relationships, this is necessary part of your evolutionary and maturity journey, to understand deeply why a particular relationship worked or didn't work for you. Because the more you understand it deeply, then only you will understand how to attract a relationship that will be more workable for you, or how to evolve yourself in a way that you are in tune with the needs of your partner who will come next in your life, right? So that's the reason why the better you do the self reflection, inner work, change your qualities in a way that is adaptable and intuitively attuned to your partner's needs and your own needs, because both are important. You can't be a completely selfless individual where you ignore your needs. That will also create an imbalance. Neither can you be a completely selfish individual where you are completely only looking at your needs and forgetting your partner's needs. Neither can you be in either side of the toxic end of these spectrums, because a right balance in some ways has to emerge in yourself and your relationship with another, and they also have to have that right balance. Then only your frequency matches with the frequency of another person. When it matches, then you end up having a good life with them. And then after it has matched, if your life path and life goals also match, that's when you end up having a long term good marriage with them. But if your life paths and life goals didn't merge, or you were meant to only have a temporary relationship with them for a few years, then how much ever you try your best to patch up something or a relationship with someone, if your life journey is never going to be aligning anymore in the future, or very few paths are there for your life journey to merge with each other, and one or the other doesn't take those paths where they are meant to merge with each other, then again the relationship can't work long term, how much ever you love a person. Because this is the other kind of love many humans have come on earth to learn, that you can potentially be in love with hundreds of people, or even at least 5 or 10 people. You can be deeply in love with 5 10 people, but even though you are deeply in love with 5 or 10 people, or they were in also deeply in love with you, with some souls the deep love was only meant to be a love that was existing to teach you what is deep love, what is love that is the kind that lasts a long time in your soul. But what is also the love, even if it lasts a long time in your soul, is a love that is not practically aligned with your life purpose on earth. Because love is not simply a spiritual thing, love is also a practical and spiritual thing. And in general, there are many people who think love is only a practical thing. So those who look at love at the clinical level, at the practical level, they also fail to realize the deeper aspects of love. And when they are looking at love at only the practical level, which many men and women tend to do currently on earth, and that because that has been normalized. So for a man it will be like, what can a woman do for me in taking care of my life, how much love she shows to me, or how sexy she looks and seems attractive to me. These are the superficial things a man looks for in a woman. And that's why I've seen so many videos of men women, those who are asked about dating or who are contemplating on this issue, for them the traditional gender role or what they saw their grandparents and parents do is what they expect from a modern relationship. They think that a woman has to take care, feed them, clothe them, bathe them, like basically a woman has to do everything their mother was doing, as well as women has to do everything they see in sexual media oriented porn materials. But the reality is, most of the porn materials that are out there in the world, they at least the brief ones that I have observed, most of them are unrealistic expectation. No woman wants to be touched and groped and uh, physically molested in the way these porn materials show. That's a complete unrealistic expectation. The only kind of women who will be ready for those kind of things that are shown in porn are heavily abused women, children of prostitutes, women. There would be like some 10% population of women who might be okay with some of those materials, but they have a hard journey learning about the sins of flesh, about why they are torturing themselves or allowing themselves to be abused like that. They have a very, very hard life lesson path journey. That's why those women would be okay with such toxic traits that modern porn shows to humans, or any porn. Actually, porn, even though people think that it is a normal aspect of a male understanding about a woman and things like that, or even nowadays even women's porn are there in forms of, not nowadays, it's been going on for many years. So women's porn comes in the guise of romantic novels where women related toxicities are shown in them. What is a women related toxicity? A women related toxicity or unrealistic expectation is a woman thinking that their man will always support them all the time, which is a highly toxic trait in a man and a woman, where if you think that if you're doing wrong your partner can't challenge you, that is an unrealistic expectation. In any authentic, real, true, long term partnership or life experience or family relationship, you have to be authentic when you perceive that something is going wrong in a relationship because of a certain behavioral pattern, and both partners have to do it. That's why if a woman can't keep her man in check when she is not man in check, again it's a man's job to keep his mind clear of toxic negative images related to sexuality and sensuality. It is definitely a man's job. But if you are a good woman and a good spouse to someone, you can at least show them, tell them, guide them, whatever is your level of evolution with them. These are the three aspects where showing, telling and guiding is possible for a woman to do to their man. It could be their brother, it could be their father, it could be their children, it could be someone random who's their friend, it could be anyone, to show the right respect regarding sex, to have the right attitude about sex, to try to at least lead them to the right path. Now, whether they will go to that right path, take that right journey, understand why what they're consuming as porn or other negative stuff related to women, why it's harmful for society, that is again the man's karma, whether he will be able to do it or not do it. The more he ignores, if 10 women are trying to guide him, let's say the man is there, he was born in a particular family, he's a super rich person, and because he's super rich, he has access to everything, he has access to being highly spoiled. Now that person who has access to many things and who has access to those things that can spoil him easily or ruin his image because he has power and money, now he has more chances of getting dragged and pulled into these darknesses and vices that other men, if they were not that rich, they will not get pulled towards as much. Because the greater the potential for you to do good, the greater is the potential of the darkness also to pull you towards all the negative things as well. And also, the greater the power and influence you have, greater are your chances to hide all the misdeeds that you're doing. So because if you're able to hide your misdeeds, then what happens is, because of your power, wealth and other advantages, as a result of you being able to hide your misdeeds, for many years maybe the reality of what you're doing may not come out in the world, but eventually it will emerge in the world in some way or the other, and your karmic consequences of it you will eventually face sometime in your life, whether in this life or next life. It is up to the universe or God to decide when you will face the karmic consequences of what you did in a particular life. But if you realize why you are getting tempted, or after being tempted, if you come back from that path, in order to help you to do that, you may have a mother who would be trying to convince you what is wrong about what you're doing. You may have a sister who could be trying to counsel you into better ways of living. You may have a granddaughter who would come and try to counsel you into a better way. You may have a stepdaughter who might do it. You may have counsel of friends and co-workers who might try to do it. You will have male friends, female friends, both trying to guide you towards the better aligned path. And everyone, if your potential for sin is higher, the potential for the number of people trying to guide you also would be higher as well, because that is what ideally God would want. God doesn't want a misaligned earth, or a earth where too much cruelty and pain and suffering and human-led cruelty, pain and suffering exists. But but God also knows that human has a free will, and because human has been created to have a free will, some people who get entitled, and you don't even have to be rich, even a poor person can, if they are raised in a patriarchal society, and they are the only child that is getting attention from a lot of people, that person also, if not attention, love, care, forgiveness, everything from multiple people, they also have the potential to feel entitled about whatever they are doing, and thinking that whatever paths they are choosing in life is aligned for them, simply because they are in the flow of their life, and not realizing when they are in their flow of their free will, where they have completely misaligned themselves and started being cruel towards other people's choices as well. Because, for example, and when I'm talking about these privileged men, women also can do it, by the way, but right now this video is actually about men, so I'm focusing more on the male gender, but women or other middle genders can also do this. So when someone is too much in their flow of ego, too much in the flow of what feels good to them, what feels right for them, and which can be a flow of what food they love to eat, it can be a flow of what sexual content they want to consume, it can be a flow of whoever they have access to get their sexual desires or emotional void fulfilled via wrongful means. So there are so many men who will not actually do anything. They watched porn, they have seen porn, and they'll sit and fantasize about some random porn star, or fantasize about some film star, or fantasize about that girl in their neighborhood. But should they be doing that? No, they shouldn't be doing that, because this sexual energy that they're wasting away and giving away to someone who is not related to them, not married to them, not legally bound also to them to have any kind of sex with them, when you are distributing your attention, energy, thought forms towards these kind of people, you are creating a very big karmic imbalance with those souls. And not only that, you are distorting your perception about another person, and you're devaluing another human being. So you might think, I'm a good guy because I don't go and rape someone, but you are nothing, you're not really that far away from raping someone, because you're energetically and sexually raping them. This thing people don't realize. So when they don't realize that, when they are not respecting another human being, and they think, oh, I'm just this is a victimless crime, because you've not actually touched that victim, but your soul and mind and thoughts and the energy that you're holding in your body is all driving you towards that. And by giving away your energy like that, what you are also ending up doing is you are distorting your aura, you are distorting your energy, you are distorting your thoughts, because you are holding on all those crappy perceptions, right? You are not wanting, a person won't want to have a random sex or thoughts related to some gruesome kind of sex with someone in their mind also, or in their fantasies, unless they've consumed such kind of horrible porn and they think that that porn material was so nice for them, because they gave them a temporary high or a temporary release from whatever they were going through. Someone who is watching a gruesome porn, they might have been cruelly abused by their parents. So because they have been cruelly abused by their parent, or they do not like their mothers and fathers, or their friends have teased them and bullied them, and they don't enjoy that teasing and bullying, they never understood how to healthily let go of and understand the purpose also sometimes of when someone is criticizing you. All these lead to men holding now negative energy, hatred, or all the kinds of toxic energy inside them, that then makes them gravitate towards a toxic bond, which then, after gravitating towards a toxic thing like that, makes them eventually think that it's all right to fantasize about someone. And this is like a gateway. One man might stop with just hating, the next man will progress from the hate to watching porn about hate related things. The next one, after hate related porn or dark materials that he has watched, he will start fantasizing about other women that he wants to do that to. Then the next one, he has completely lost his perceptions. So from just fantasizing, it becomes a choice for him to do that to someone. Next one person might just rape one woman. Another one decides if he has the power and influence, he will get away with 10 other women. Or someone will get married to someone and torture them continuously for 10, 20, 30 years of their marriage. So are these all gateways or to hell that you have created to other people in your life? All of them are gateways. You just don't realize when you started the gateway, when people were there in your life to criticize you or tease you or bully you for something that's distorting your energy. When you are getting bullied, sometimes you're getting bullied. Some people get bullied because they are too good, and some people also get bullied because they are too evil. And both evil and good, or in those in the middle, they all need to get teased sometimes. They all need to get woken up from the hubris they have, the ego they have, the toxic thoughts they have in their mind. Because if someone is goody two shoes, now someone could be really good, or someone could have really good and normally good, or someone could really be pretending to be good. So the person who's pretending to be good, he needs to be called out by his friends and families or other people in some way or the other. Now whether you will be called out in a respectful way by a respectful person who loves you, who cares for you. But that person who loved you and cared for you and respectfully told you that this path is wrong. Like if I am a sister to someone and I see my brother watching too much porn, and I do not want, and I know that his energy is completely distorted as a result of it. When I know that, when I understand that, when I'm trying to check you that this is not how you treat a woman, if you're not listening to that, is there going to be some woman who will eventually come in your life who will give you a tongue lashing, or even file a case against you if for years and years you've continued watching, not simply watching the porn, you've distorted your energy in such a way that you decide that any woman is fair game for you to have sex with, or whatever way you decide to have sex according to your distorted perception and using your free will that has been already hijacked and distorted by thousands or times that you want something distorted. When you eventually marry someone, or even if you have legally married that person, you don't have a legal right to assault that person or destroy their energy that God created to have beautiful sex. But these things people don't understand, even though many religions teach about it. And because people don't understand, that's why their wife will leave them, die, or if not in this life, the wife leaves them in the next life after having lived 40 years with you, where you were sexually traumatized by a spouse. Do you think in the next life that person would want to be your spouse? In Hinduism, it said that you have 7 lives to be with a partner. Why do you get that 7 lives to be with them? Because Hinduism talks about reincarnation, having different lives with a partner. In those 7 lives, you're supposed to understand. In the first life, if you didn't understand respect of women, God might forgive you. But in the second life, third life, like after maybe 2 or 3 lives, you didn't understand it, that's fine. But if you understood it, if you didn't slowly start evolving after the 3 lives with someone, why will God give you again and again that same partner? God will not give you. Even if that partner was deluded into thinking you are a good husband, doesn't make you necessarily a good husband if you have violated the principles of how humans are supposed to exist with each other when they are existing as spouse and partner, when they are having sexual relationships with them, when they are having a long term family life with them. All these things come into picture. And because there are also men who on the outside world it seems like they are really good spouses, but they're not really good spouses. Why? Because that core truth of why you're not a good spouse is always accessible to God. God always knows what you're doing, what you're not doing. It doesn't matter if 1,000 human beings, like if you are say the head of a particular company, or a businessman who is revered worldwide to be the a billionaire of some sort, or be it a man, be it a woman, be it you are a princess of a particular country, whatever it is, you're a princess, you're a prince, you are a rich man, you are a famous personality, you are a football personality, you are a whatever, socially acceptable role you are playing, where you have millions of people who love you, millions of people who adore you, millions of people who think that you are the bee's knees. But whatever they think that you are the best kind of human on earth, reality of whether you were the best kind of human is not dependent on the humans who only saw the illusory version of you. The reality of you is inside the humans who actually draw the true version of you, as well as the reality is always there with God. So there could be someone who was abused by you, or even if they were not abused, who could observe that you are abusing this XYZ person in a sexual manner, that you were not supposed to do it. That person doesn't realize that they were sexually abused because of whatever reason. Maybe they are hypnotized, that's why they don't know. Maybe they are drugged, and that's why they don't know. Maybe even if they are not hypnotized or drugged, they realize that they have no other choice, that's why they allow that sexual assault on their body every day. Or maybe even if they said no many times, their husband does something energetically or sexually to them, where they get away with abusing them for many years. Many things could be happening. Or their husband, while touching them, he's not doing anything gross that they can talk about, but because they are consuming lots and lots of porns, it's a violation. People don't understand it, but just because you don't understand it doesn't make it not a violation. People legally say, I live in India, for example, if a wife says no to sex in a marriage, it can be considered as an assault on that wife legally, but it is never considered a rape in India according to the legal terms, even if she had said no to sex from a spouse. But that same woman, that same couple, if they were living in a country where the laws do define rape in a better manner, that same situation of sex that happened and unfolded with them in a different country will be considered as rape. And then that person will be 10 times more legally prosecutable than if they had done that in a country where the laws are lax. But whatever is the human law that was created against the violation of a woman's body, the spiritual law, legal law, the law that takes priority over all laws on earth, according to that law, you have violated another human being. So you may have got away with 10 years, 100 years, 100 times, 1,000 times of violating one woman, 10 women, doesn't matter, a woman lifetime after lifetime. You might have got away with it. But even if you get away with it, doesn't mean that God doesn't see what you have got away with it. What were the opportunities given to you to steer away from this path? How many places you failed to steer away from this path? Why you failed to steer away? Why you couldn't wake up? All these things. God is all knowing, all understanding, all understanding of the things that humans can get tempted with. But God also has to bring justice to many people, so that justice will one day come. If you have done violations which maybe thousands of people didn't realize was happening, millions of people globally don't realize is happening, doesn't mean that it didn't happen. it happened. It just happened in the God's eye. God knows when it happened, why it happened, how it happened, what were your intentions in your soul when you did what you did. Everything God knows. Now you can live in denial that there is no God, but even a human being who lives in denial that there is no God doesn't understand that they are always been on a earth where there has been a higher power that rules earth. So your denial of the higher power doesn't stop the higher power from existing, which is what humans don't understand. And those are the humans only who don't understand that there is a higher power, and that's why only they think they are the supreme power. And because they think they are the supreme power, they continue doing what they think is valid for them to do. Some people do it lifetime after lifetime, some people do it live like 100 of years, because there are human beings who have lived over 100. It's just that they've not been tracked. There are human beings who have actually lived over 100, and there are books that talk about these humans who have lived more than 100 years. It's just that we haven't met those men and women who have lived over 100 years, or we don't know how different those men and women look who have lived over 100 years. And because we don't know, whatever was logically tracked, we know only about those women and men. And those women and men who have been logically tracked to live over 100 years, is there enough evidence on earth to show that there are some men and women who live up to 120, 128 years of age? We have already tracked that, people living over 100 years. So if you have lived say a life of over 100 years, and in that 100 years you abused many humans sexually, or abuse can be of multiple kinds, but talking about sexual abuse related issues, because that's a main global problem right now. And because it's a main and male problem, what is happening is, every time you're also abusing a woman, after using a negative energy, toxic energy, whatever energy you used when you slept with a woman, or used a woman for sex, or dated a woman and then discarded her away, whatever certain types of men did to a woman. And now some women also have started doing that, some transgender people also do all these things. Whatever it is a human being has done with another human being, the consequence and the energy of that kind of gross and gruesome sex, or assault filled sex, or manipulation led sex, or drugging led, or hypnosis led relationships, all that energy is going to be born within the kid that will manifest out of that sexual relationship. And that energy is also the proof that God has of what you did to someone. And that child also will, if a father is perverted, 50% of that perversion will be there in that child also. So that child also has the capability now to have perverted sex in the future. If the father and mother both are perverted, the child has now both genes. So that child now is going to be a double level monster. So these monsters don't get created on earth just out of thin air. The people with the person who, if a grandfather was just simply watching porn and he didn't teach the right things to his grandchild or children, that same grandfather's next progeny will be watching too much porn and thinking negative thoughts and perceiving women negatively. The next generation will be doing not just that, they will assaulting the women now based on the porn and dark stuff they have watched and let into their energy and into their family history. Whatever they allowed, now that has gone into a greater scale and greater scale. So within 100 years or hundreds of years, the same person's progeny now, they are all sexual perverts. So those sexual perverts now, out of them, I'm not saying everyone will turn into a sexual pervert. If they were given the and God knows this person's family line is got now, let's say a great grandfather has now 50 great grandchildren, and those 50 great grandchildren, some are men, some are women, some are mixed gender, transgender people, whatever they are, or bisexual people, whatever they are, they all hold the same perverted energy of that great grandfather, and then the perverted energy of whoever else was mating with that person. and then out of those 50, now at least 5 of them might turn out to be rapists of the future. So God has to monitor that or not, and God would want no rapist to be formed in the future, no person who is so distorted in their mental energy that they are going to continue, assaulting other human beings, violating the laws, that the supreme laws that human beings, even if they forget about it, God can't forget about it, because that's the principle of law that is created for humans to exist on earth. So that law can't be forgotten. It will be there in your soul memory. It's just that you will keep trying to, if you are a denial led human being, narcissistic human being, mentally ill human being, distorted human being, incapable of learning from someone who is trying to caution you. Because when someone cautions you that, hey, don't watch too much for porn, if they are your brother or your sister or your father or your social circle, someone who is of importance to you, when they're telling you don't consume too much of it, yeah, you can deny and ignore their thoughts initially. But when you've really crossed the limit of watching and seeing something distorted and you didn't come back from it, that is totally your free will that did it. And because of your free will doing it, then whatever child will be born when you were consuming these things and the next set of things will lead to a future generation that will be really distorted and twisted and other things. And I realized that myself only because, like, when I was a teen, my dad said, don't, consume all these women's romance novels which have bad stuff in it. Even though he said that, I also was one of those people who did fail to recognize the importance of. I didn't completely fail to recognize though when he said it. Now, if I was a human being who's in denial, all these categories that I mentioned above, narcissistic, in denial, antisocial, not respectful of what my father is telling me to do, not careful about understanding why is he telling do not consume this. I understood he's telling not to, and yeah, I was a teen, immature teen. So for me, it took a while to understand the consequence and importance of what the value of what he was saying. But because he has said it, and that was a grain of seed, a seed that was planted in my brain that I shouldn't do it because my dad is telling me not to do it. Definitely, if you are an obedient child, you will immediately stop doing something that is harmful and toxic. I was not an obedient child. I was a little rebellious child, but I still am not the child who is antisocial enough to completely not recognize the value of what he's saying. Because as soon as he said it, after that, if I read some books which were really toxic, which were really, and I ended up finding such a toxic, horrible book also. I was filled with all kinds of dark sex related stuff. Immediately I didn't finish reading the book. I only read part of the book and I realized this is too much dark material, I should not consume it. I understood the value of what my dad is saying. So immediately I stopped consuming those. And actually after reading that book, I got so horribly traumatized with what horrible stuff that book had written. I stayed away from reading such books for a long time. Then again, when I went to US, I had the freedom where again I have no parental influence. So again, for a few years, I was consuming some women's romance related books. But when I'm consuming those books, again the phase happened that again some dark material related books started coming up. Then again I remembered it's not simply what my dad is saying, but now this fact of how it influences our energy, thought forms, and other things made me realize I do not want to consume this crap. So when I realized this is crap, I do not want to consume, because that is the free will. Free will allows you to in romance books, there are crappy romance books, there are toxic romance books, there are mentally distorted perceptions about romance that are present in some of these books, just like how porn is. And then there are some softer guilty pleasure, but not that guilty pleasure. There are some elements of romance that every woman will desire in their life, or if that was present, is what makes life fulfilling for a woman. So, but how much of those books are like that? Very few. Maybe like 10% of the books and stories are currently like that. 90% or maybe 20% has something good in it. Remaining 80% is all crap. Like that, even porn, there are maybe one or two which will actually show some real I highly doubt it though, because whatever porn related, male related, porn related material I have experienced, I did not find anything really healthy about it, except that visually it looks what men want. It tells women or men what men are looking for. But again, that narrative, because 90% or I think 99% of the porn is crap, because of which whatever it shows, it only creates a false illusion. And in women's book, I think it used to be 10-20% might be good quality thing. I don't know currently what it is, because currently in last 10 years I've not consumed any of those things related to women romance related products. Maybe like I've watched a show, but I have not read any books related to that. And that's why also many books, when people if these companies who make these books for women, targeted marketed as women, if they realize their target market is drying up, why is it drying up? You are doing and bringing something in society that is not socially and culturally needed anymore. Other media has taken over what books used to do. That's why books are losing their importance and other media are coming up into prominence. But which books don't lose their importance? A book like Harry Potter didn't lose its importance, because it still had some value, and that's why it continued. And not just value, it had some educational knowledge also about certain principles of life that people needed to learn. It was coached in magical terms, but even though it was coached in magical terms, there were some realistic principles about life that children had to learn. That's why that book continued and got famous so much globally. Again, other than that, Game of Thrones also became popular. But Game of Thrones, even though it had some core truths also in Game of Thrones, it had a lot of toxicity in it. And because it had a lot of toxicity, even though there was a potential of that material also to educate people about the right and wrong way of perceiving sex, because the book has a lot of sex related material, a lot of cruelty related material, and there's a right way to address cruelty and sex, and there is a wrong way to address it. The book went the wrong way, and as soon as the book started going the wrong way, you see the author also couldn't write beyond the fourth or fifth book. His books, even though he had potential to write a lot of things, he was actually guided by God to write a lot of things, but when he started getting distorted in his perception about cruelty, distorted in his perception about how he views women, when he completely started getting distorted, all the blessings he had in his life that led him to write such rich, the book has some rich material. I've read the 4 books. Fifth book I skimmed over many parts because it was so horrible and toxic, but the 4 books I have read very thoroughly, and there were good material in it. A editor could have edited it, but even if an editor edits the books, if the core material is toxic to future generations, that's why not able to create any more further books. And that's why the show also ended the way it ended, for another reason. The core materials, direction in which the story should have gone, would have gone in a way that would have diverted attention away from normalized gender roles, from normalized perception of what bravery is, and from normalized, and that's why there were so many female contenders to the throne also in the story. But because despite that, not just female contenders to the throne, but female soldiers were there in the storyline. But the thing that was presented in Game of Thrones, and not just female soldiers were present, there were actually in the Game of Thrones story, some of the men were softer men, gentler men with more feminine energy, and some of the women were women with more masculine energy. Why? Because the future, if really they wanted to end and conclude the Game of Thrones storyline in the right way, the future of the storyline would have led to a mixing of gender roles related plotline emerge in the story. But the guy was not ready to mix the gender roles, understand the value of why mixing of gender roles is happening right now on earth. And because he's not ready, because the majority audience is not ready, because the majority audience got fed into the male toxicity of the storyline than the thing that was the higher purpose of the story emerging initially. The higher purpose of the story emerging initially was to highlight some of the toxicity of male privilege, toxicity of how men can be cruel, toxicity of how cruel society emerges. But the midpoint of the storyline, on the fourth book itself, the story started getting ruined, because that was the midpoint of his books, and in the midpoint of his books the story started getting ruined because men are in denial. He was in denial. Most audiences who consume these books are in denial of where the story had to turn. And that's why, even though he got this guidance that Arya Stark has to kill the Dark Knight, even though he got that guidance and the book didn't show it, but the show showed it. So spoiler alert for Game of Thrones, those who don't know how Game of Thrones ended in the show. Even though some female character was supposed to start bringing justice, because the thing that was men's role of bringing justice to the world has now shifted, and women have to start bringing justice into the world. That's why so many female characters were there in the book who were driving towards justice in their own different ways. And then the story had to twist a little bit further too. While women are busy bringing justice, men have to now switch the roles. If men are not bringing justice and women are doing the justice related thing, what are then men supposed to do? Which the author didn't understand, because he was not doing it. If he did it, if he had done it in his life when he became famous, because that's when he got the privilege to twist that narrative, turn the narrative of what softer men, gentler men, kinder men, men more attuned to their feminine energy are supposed to do, which is what Jon Stark's character was, as well as his brother's character Robb Stark, who died. Now his character was dead in the storyline, but or even Lannister, he is also that softer man character actually. But all of these men who were supposed to twist the narrative, change the narrative of what, when women are bringing the justice, what are men doing, their characters couldn't evolve in the storyline. And because they didn't evolve the right way, because the men audiences are okay with the woman killing the main villain of the storyline. The main villain was not even the Night King. There are many other villains in the story, and all those villains, how they have to be also killed by twisting this gender narrative, couldn't manifest in the storyline. That's why he could never finish the books, and he is likely never going to be able to finish these books. And same way, anyone else who has now decided to make money out of it based on past Lannister history, or wants to milk money out of this, they won't be able to do it until they shift their narrative and understand the higher purpose of why these books were created. And this is how I'm making this video, why I changed the topic into this fictional universe, is because this is the reality of modern life on earth as well. The fictional universe is just mimicking the reality of modern life on earth, where many men who have good feminine qualities, who are softer in nature, whose divine feminine nature is more prominent in them than their masculine nature, they are supposed to gravitate towards the women whose masculine nature is in prominence than their feminine nature, right? And they are gravitating towards this, which is why in the movies or in the show, when not Cersei Lannister, she was not a divine feminine, she was a distorted feminine. But someone who had a divine feminine potential, one was Arya Stark, another was Sansa Stark, and third was Brienne of Tarth had it a little bit. The young child from one of the Bear Kingdom, she had it. And there was also what is her name? I'm forgetting her name. The one who, Mother of Dragon. I'm forgetting her name right now. But these 5 women had it. They had the potential to be the divine feminine. But the feminine who is balanced feminine, who has good masculine and feminine energy balance inside them. But in order for them to balance that energy, they also have to meet those men who have balanced their masculine and feminine energy. And why is that required? And like these characters in real life also, and the potential of the men who could do that were in the form of Robb Stark, Jon Stark, Sam, and also the Lannister brothers. They all also had the potential to shift the narrative of what is a balanced masculine feminine energy holding man. But because they all failed to live up to that expectation, or the author couldn't understand that concept, so he couldn't write it, or even if he understood it, he was getting waylaid by dark energies to not be able to write about it. And apart from the author, the whole set of audiences who massively consume this storyline also were completely in distorted masculine energy, many of them, not all of them, because I am also a consumer of those books, but I am not in my distorted energy, so I understand what is the toxic storyline. And there were many other men also, by the way, many other men side characters in the storyline also, who had the potential to be, these were the main characters, but there were some other side characters who also had the potential to be balanced masculine feminine energy men, who were supposed to drive towards the right change, and they drove towards the right change. Those who helped Mother of Dragons to come into the Game of Thrones, the King's Landing area. When she came from a different, continent to this continent, her whole move was able to be possible in the storyline because there were these balanced energy men who were ready to support a balanced energy women, potentially balanced energy. But when the storyline then distorted her by making her a distorted feminine or masculine feminine energy holding person, which is where the author ruined it, because people were in denial of understanding the overarching material, and the authors were in denial. The people who are mass consuming this, they also would be in denial if the storyline had shown something else, and that's why they couldn't show it. But in order for people to wake up to understanding this storyline, like if ever say, what I've said here, that maybe he will not be able to write the future storyline, but say he is going to be able to write it, if he really writes authentically what he's meant to write, and other people allow him to publish authentically what he's channeling, because when you're writing these storylines, you are gifted by God to channel a particular storyline or channel something that is important for the world to understand. That's why only some such potent material gets created where globally so many people understand the material. But after understanding the material, if you hold on to the toxicity of the material and think that is the crux of the material, that is selling the material, that is not the truth of it. The real truth is, the reason why this universe was created, or allowed to be created, is to shift this narrative of gender roles, of balancing gender roles, shifting gender roles, changing gender roles, which is what brings me back to the beginning of what this video was talking about men who don't understand. Like when I said families were created where children were undergoing certain hardships in their life, which is what I mentioned in the beginning of the video, the reason why those children went through those hardships, similar to the Game of Thrones Stark children when they are going through their hardships, is because you were meant to lead a very atypical and hardship-led life, different from the norm of the privilege you might have had instead when you had a more balanced life, or when your parents were alive in your life, or parents were there to guide you. Those atypical children, they have all come, those who led atypical lives, they came to lead those atypical lives so that they can shift this narrative too, just like in the Game of Thrones universe. It is about those children who are able to understand the value of where masculine energy is necessary, where feminine energy is necessary. What about the masculine energy is necessary for future evolution of Earth? What about the feminine energy is necessary for the future evolution